Good evening, and we it is today we bring another session of Into the Minds of Men, conversations on and about men, and this is and before I introduce our esteemed guests, I want to talk about a little bit about Conversations Talking Cures. It is a mental health initiative, and we aim not to be a one-stop solution for everything that is related to mental health, but we want to bring mental health out of the closet to remove the stigma and the taboo associated with mental health. और हमारी कोशिश ये है कि it is a new way of conversing and people shouldn't just reach out to psychologists, counselors जब उनकी problem हो, but they should be able to talk about it. जैसे as we go to a physician, we should be able to go to a counselor or a psychologist. And the reason for today's conversation and yesterday, it's a series, yesterday we started this, is in the minds of men. एक incident हुआ था which really disturbed, and that was the boys locker room incident. And from there, I we thought about it, and it was very disturbing because with so much of empowerment going on, and with so much of conversation and strong feminism and empowerment of women, and despite all that, 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds are still discussing whatever info, whatever was there in the Snapchat, even if it was, if even if I take it as a fantasy, but it was there. It was a very violent imagery, and we and what happened was the police got into action. Everybody got into action. It was all punitive. और तब मुझे लगा कि कहीं एक गैप हो रही है. We have always taken it for granted that it is a man's world, and so we have never included men into any conversation about empowerment. It was always against, or there is something, and so it is time to really take back, because अगर इतने years of empowerment, still a new 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, they are the future. अगर उन पे भी इफेक्ट नहीं हुआ है तो हमें कुछ सोचना तो पड़ेगा ही. We got in yesterday, we had a discussion on masculinity and manhood, sexuality, and pornistan, pornography. Today we have to we have a psychologist with us, a very very famous psychologist, Dr. Rajat Mitra. He is he's um, uh, Dr. Rajat, welcome to the show. He's a Delhi University postgraduate, and he's a Harvard alumnus. He's also worked on criminal psychology, and I think the most loved part of his of all the work he's done is this beautiful book he's written, The Infidel Next Door, and that book it gave me a sleepless night, and I think that's such a wonderful book. It shows how deep he can go into analysis. And today he's here, and we look forward to an analysis of or whatever we call as male psychology. The other person we have with us is Miss Raksha Bharadia. I want to say today I have two authors here. Both are famous writers, and Raksha has written many books. She's also edited the Chicken Soup for the Soul, some of the series there, and more. And she's the founder of Bonology, a very innovative initiative, and it's a counseling. And she also this online counseling, marital counseling, relationship counseling. So I welcome both of you, and I thank you for coming here and agreeing to share your thoughts, because then it becomes a very sacred space, and for honoring us. And so I begin with the first question, and which is obvious. I will begin. I'll ask Rajat first, because it's a man's it's conversations on men and all that male psychology. So Rajat, what does being a man mean to you in terms of all the roles you play and everything?
Okay, if what what means being a man to me, I would say, and something which I have been working on, is that a man needs to show that he cares. That is something which is a fundamental definition. Whether I worked in a ward for severely mentally ill people or with violence issues across the world, one of the issues that came in therapy again and again is to teach men how to care. So I would say that that is more than anything. There are many other things which define a man, right? But to show that he to show that a man cares, the, I would call it the feminine side of him, within him, that we don't allow our culture to bring out, to show the vulnerability, to make him hard like a nut, a shell that cannot be broken, who's distant from everything. So that is not a man to me. He's not a man to me. A man is someone who shows tenderness, who shows care, uh, who protects, and who is, I would say, not in any way different from a woman in any sense, except for some roles which you cannot change. But that's what essentially a man to me.
So, Rajat, what are the roles that you cannot change?
For example, I can tell you a story. I mean, like when I used to work in Sanjeevni, and it was a ward, it was a center for around 25 mentally ill people at any time. One of them one day came to me and said that, you are both a mother and a father to me. So I said, well, I can be a father to you, but I cannot be a mother. I can be many things, but I cannot be a woman, right? So I can show that I care, right? And a man can show that he cares too. So I cannot change those. I cannot change that, right? So to me, this is one of the things that when you show caring, when you show affection, you are often branded as someone who's weak, who's someone who's not strong enough inside. And I would like to say that the strongest are those who can show their tender side, who can show their caring. And this is my message to all people who probably are very hardened inside. So, in my almost 30 years of work with some of the most violent men in the world, I have worked with terrorists in Thailand, in India. I have worked with law enforcement in many countries of the world, worked with many violent people. And this is something which I always try to bring out in them, to be vulnerable, to show that they care. So that's what I think is most important for men in the world today. And contrary to what Steven Pinker talks about, that the
Yeah.
world is getting a better place and men are not as violent as before, I
Mhm.
still feel that we have a long way to go. I think you just walk into any refugee camp and hear the stories. You walk in, you just go to Sri Lanka, you just go to Nepal, where I work, you just go to Burma. You will see the violence by men, which is so endemic and which is almost, like, it is not worth talking about it because it is so banal and common. And I think that that is what needs to change.
Yeah. Evil is very, very banal, and it's
Yeah,
very, it's almost like lurking in your everyday neighborhood and
sure.
in your own house. Raksha, I want you to answer that. What does being a man mean to you?
Um,
I mean, what is it that you would define as a man? As a woman, what do you think? I mean, what does
so I feel I'm pretty conflicted in this because there's an environment I grew up in where my dads and all the men in my family, their roles were very defined. So they were, as Dr. Rajat said, they were the providers, they were the providers, they were the decision makers. And when I moved out, I got married and I started working. So I don't know, at least in my community and in the sphere from where I come from, we are the first generation of women who are actually working. And even if we are working, our income doesn't go into running the family or running the house. It's always as a saving or as a backup. So I feel, at the same time, I live in two worlds. A world where I grew up in, where my mom and all the moms around me, whether it is my friends, relatives, their parents, my building, my community, my society, though I grew up in Calcutta, at least the community that I was in. So the women were the nurturers, the providers, and they were somewhat, they put the family first. And here I come where I think I want more equality. And, things changed. Uh, as we started working and with economic independent, not economic independence, but economic earning, and reading more books, studying, things changed, the equation changed. So being a woman, I think how I would see an Indian man, at least the ones that I know closely, I think there are two. I think we have all kind of people. There's a whole range of patriarchy, which is reflected in in the men that I see. So I feel it's about changing. So there are men who are very, very now open to at least understanding what a modern woman wants, because you can't have a warrior and a submissive women. You can't have a warrior outside and a submissive woman in the bedroom or in the house. So I think they are now beginning to kind of understand. And I think as much as a struggle it is for us, it is also a struggle for them, because there are no role models. So we're creating new role models. I don't know if I've answered that question. This is what my understanding. We're confused, we are learning, we are trying to understand where we are today.
Raksha, I think your audio is not clear. So, but meanwhile, while Raksha joins in,
Sure.
uh, yeah, Rajat, I would like to ask you that, tell us what makes, I mean, the psychological aspects of a man. What is the, the male psychology as we call it? Raksha will just join in. So,
Uh, I think I, to me, separating between male and female psychology is a little, dicey and puts us on a ground which is shaky. There are things which are common to both male and females, as I would say. By and large, they have essentially the same set of qualities, same set of approaches, and there is. If you talk of anything particularly as, I mean, male psychology, I cannot just think of anything which is distinctive of male that cannot belong to the female, right? It is something that I think we need to believe that there is something universal about both of us. Yes, of course, there are ways in which we react differently, and there is a lot of debate whether it is innate or not. Like a experiment was done where both very young boys and girls were given structures to build, and it was found that the young boys, they built structures which projected outwards, which kind of went
yeah,
out. The
yes,
young girls, they built structures which projected inwards. Now this was used to say that this shows some innate characteristics, but to me, this thing is something which is still debatable, and still there is a lot of research which is needed. In fact, some time back, there was a very famous book called, which came out, which called The Female Brain. It was by Dr. Zainar Dane,
yes,
and she talked about how, because the male and the female brains are different, therefore men and women are also different, right? So it was found that many of the things that she had said or she had postulated were not exactly based upon scientific researches and findings. Like she talked about, you know, uh, women are the ones who are, men are the ones who are silent, women who are not. Men use 20,000 words when women use 7,000 words. So it was found that those are really not based upon very exact, parameters and researches. So more research is necessary to say that what we can exactly exclusively call a male psychology. That is my opinion, and I think that to me, there are essential characteristics of both men and women which have been dominated, which have been pressed down, which we need to bring that up. Like, for example, Jung talked about both the male and the female side of ourselves, right? The androgynous part of ourselves, right? So it is important for both to bring up those sides. In fact, when again I'm going back to my work with very disturbed people, very often they would come and ask for touch, like they would ask for a reassurance or a pat on the head or a pat on the shoulders. Both boys and girls, they asked for it equally, and they asked for both the male and the female staff. There was no difference. And I also feel, for example, in working with sexually abused, girls, which I have worked for the last 15 years, one of the things I have noticed, and this is something also here and abroad, like they say that you should it's only a woman psychologist who should talk to a girl, right? And keeping that rule in mind, I would very often, when I would be there with a woman, because we had to go to many distant places, villages where a woman was assaulted and we had to talk, I would very often go out and say that aap jo hai isse baat kar lijiye, and I am going out. And the girl herself or the woman herself would say nahi aap rahiye yahan pe, right? So they sensed probably the female, the feminine side of me and felt comfortable with me, right? And it is something that can come about in both of us. So I believe that true male psychology lies in developing both the male and the both the masculine and the feminine side within yourself and finding a balance of both in yourself, right?
Yeah. Yes. So how, then how and what you yourself said that in male are more violent, and I mean in your otherwise also you were just telling us about how in the jail or in those camps, and so why do you think, is there a difference? But you work with women also, so are they both
Oh
equally
yes,
violent, or is there a difference? What is this? If
of
there is
course.
masculinity, or what are these issues? Is there a difference
Oh yes, of
in
course
the?
there is a, yeah, of course. Sorry, I mean, is it meant for me?
Yes, yes, for you.
Okay. Yeah, of course. If you see the statistics of the world, males are many times, almost 8 to 9 times more violent than the woman. Like if we see, for example, relationship abuse, if we see sexual assault, it is always the men who are doing that. But I also feel that a major reason for that is the environment, because the way men are taught, the way men are brought up, the men are taught to be detached, not show their feelings, not be vulnerable. And of course there is a role of the neural circuitry also within yourself, right, which also operates. And I believe that it's the way the environment and the neurology, the biology work, and they interact, produce finally who we are. And I think that I mean that is what the present research also is pointing towards, that it's both biology and environment that go ahead and produce the person that who we are, right? So that defines for me why men are so much more violent. And a lot of violence by men is collective. For example, if you see in the police forces, in the army, in all the collective places, men are taught to submerge their individuality and become part of a collective and not feel any guilt in the process of acting violent. It is shown to be the collective. So there is the role that ideology plays and picks up men and indoctrinates them, something which I have written in my book extensively about how the process of indoctrination takes place. And I also believe that probably for not all, but a certain percentage of people who have been indoctrinated into terrorism, into violence, they can be helped to change. Like I work with a de-radicalization program with the law enforcement, and we always find that there is a certain percentage of people who have not crossed over the threshold who can be brought back. And this is a very significant step that the has been going on for some time, that we are not innately violent, that yes, there may be a greater predisposition towards violence in some men than others, but environment also plays a critical role at certain periods of your life to change, to convert you into what you are. Like for example, if you expose a child, a small child, to detachment at a very young stage, like you show the child beheading, or you show the child animal sacrifices or other issues, the child will get detached and grow up with that, right? It may, some, for some it's irreversible, we cannot help it. But there is always a percentage, even amongst the most violent, who can be helped to change and who can be brought about to change. My work in Tihar jail, which was primarily on violence management, that is what Kiran Bedi got me for. It was a team of us professionals, Dr. H.S. Sethi, me, and two others. We worked on violence management. We could not succeed with many people, but we could succeed with some key people who brought about changes. So change, I do believe, is a possibility for some of the most violent men. Yeah. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, yes, yes. I come, Raksha. I want to
Yeah, I'm
ask.
sorry. I kind of disappeared in between, was trying to fix up. But I
Yeah,
think this is better, right? My
yeah,
sound
yeah.
and the video? Great.
Yes, now it's much
Thank you.
better. So,
Yeah.
Raksha, what are the relationship issues men face with respect to women?
So, on bonobology, we
Hmm.
get about 25, 30 queries a day. And before this, I actually put a book together called Chaos,
Hmm.
which specifically dealt with issues in couple relationships. So, what I understand from, primarily what I understood was respect is a very big issue. And interestingly, it is love which is used as a scapegoat for not giving or receiving respect. So we get a lot of mails on, I know he loves me, but does he respect me? So, for instance, a couple comes together. There are some conflicts. The woman says something, or the man says something. The woman says something. There's retaliation, and then a lot of cruel words are spoken, mind you, from both. Okay, and one goes beyond, and one hits where the other is most vulnerable. And the next morning, when the husband realizes that he said a lot of mean things, or perhaps even physically abused the spouse, or the other way around, that's also happening. When you apologize, you don't even apologize right, because love is used and as an excuse to understand. So the common language spoken between this couple is, but you know I love you, right? So kya hai? So the thing is, but love is something very different from respect. And I think we all need respect to kind of understand or figure out, because I want to be respected for all the horror. I mean, I want a correct apology. So I think men don't know how to apologize, A. And I think the problem with women is that they sit on it. Okay, so pretty much like the movie Thappad, which in fact, we got a query just a couple of days back, where the man said that every time we get into a fight, I somehow slap her. This actually came to me, and I want to stop it, but I don't know how to stop it, because it's been, he's seen it happen in his family, and though he feels bad about it. So I'm coming back to my point of conflict. There is a certain environment one has grown up in, so they are struggling, but the problem is that we don't seek help. We think it's a taboo. So I think that is one of the biggest issues that I see. This whole thing of cloaking respect with love. And I think respect, when we talk about equality, yeah, is is it okay? Hello, is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that is one. And another thing, what I realized is, uh, you said problem that men have with women is, women just keep saying the same thing over and over again, and they shut down. So there is a way how you approach a problem without being repetitive about it. So that is something we get a lot. And interestingly, a third problem we get, which is pretty much different from what we are hearing, is men are now being used as the ATM. They are the providers. They feel that all day they're working, and this builds a lot of resentment in them. So as I mentioned, with a lot of people, we go back and we ask that your wife works, so what happens to that income? So that is saved, a part of it goes to her parents, fair enough, but it is never really used in the house income, is what we get. So I think the men feel a lot more used, and resentment comes from there. I think these are the big issues that we feel, and that we get. And of course, yeah, sure, please, Dr. Rajat, go ahead.
Uh,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
just 1 second, Rajat. I'll just come in here. Raksha, you just need to tilt your screen a little bit. Your face is being cut just a little.
Oh
Yes.
gosh, I'm so sorry about this.
No,
Is
no,
this
no, no,
okay?
no. A little more. I think people would want to. Now it's perfect.
Is it
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah. It is
Okay,
fine.
okay, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
I think I just wanted
Rajat.
to make a yeah, I
Huh.
just wanted
Please.
to make a small comment on your what you said about respect. A couple of years back, I was giving a talk at one of the women's colleges, and one of the girls got up and said that, "Sir, should we respect our elders?" So I said no. So the principal was sitting next to me, and she said that, how can you say that? I mean, we respect our elders. This is our tradition. This is our custom.
Hmm.
If we don't respect elders, what do we respect? So I
Very
said we
true.
respect behavior. right? And
True.
the thing
Very
Beautiful.
true.
is,
Very nice.
I had sensed that there was, when that girl had got up, the way she got up, the way she asked me, and I have worked for years with sexually assaulted and sexually abused girls. There was something in her voice, in her personality, that just struck me like that. And then when I was coming out, she just hurriedly came and said, "Sir, can I talk to you for 2 minutes?" So I said, "Sure." So I went aside and I said, "Yeah, what do you have to say?" She said, "You answered a question for me, because all my life I was told to respect a person who abused me, and your thing said that I should not. I should respect my behavior." So I shared that with the principal, and she said, "Then can we talk to the students about it?" I say, "Yes, because under the garb of respecting age, a lot of pedophiles, a lot of violent men, they use such defense mechanisms in order to carry out their abuse. So let us teach our children, let us teach people that you should respect nothing but behavior. It may mean making a paradigmic change in the way we look at many things, but I think it's worth it, that to prevent violence, we have to change some of the beliefs, some of the myths, some of the suppositions that we hold true. This is what I wanted to say.
Oh, lovely. I
Very
really,
well.
yeah, very, very
Very,
true.
very, very true. And so, Rajat, Raksha just told us, in fact, you told us what issues men face with respect to women, and women face with respect to men. So, is there any more issues that you feel besides, of course, the ATM and this and repetitive, women are repeating things? Raksha, what other issues do men face with respect to women? Relationship issues. And then we'll come to Rajat.
Oh, sorry, you were asking me what more
Yes.
issues.
Yeah. If you have
Uh,
any other, then we move to
so,
Rajat.
so I think pretty much like women and men express emotions differently. So
Yeah.
men fix. So while we express emotions differently, we do not understand that the two genders express emotions differently. So I think one needs to have a lot more space. One needs to give a lot more space and understand, so we are very sympathetic and empathetic, but when it comes to the couple relation, you have to understand that nothing is minorly wrong. Like, you've known the other person for decades, right? So even a small blunder is like, but you know how I feel about this, right? So I'm coming to the point is that there is no small blunder in a couple relationship of decades. But however, when we think it's okay for us, we do not give the other person the space for it. So while the two genders express feelings and emotions differently, they don't understand that they express it differently. So I would recommend, have a have a good close friend without having an affair of the opposite gender. So some of the problems we've solved in our in our counseling sessions is by actually recommending that have a close friend of the opposite gender. So I want to quickly tell a small case where very much taking on from your respecting the elder, Dr. Rajat. So we had this mother-in-law who was a complete psychiatric case, but she refused to go for her OCPD. She had a personality disorder issue. She refused to see the psychiatrist diagnosed her, but she refused to take the medicine. Of course, the husband and the father-in-law refused to make her take the meds, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, it resulted in she trying to commit suicide, and finally the couple moving out of the house. uh, when the couple moved out of the house, so the husband here moved from a bungalow to a flat in some very sidey location, obviously what was available. So he couldn't get over that. So the lady couldn't understand here that the husband was very embarrassed about what his peers and colleagues and people are thinking, because they thought he's gone bankrupt, because obviously he didn't want to tell about the issues happening at home. So she could understand this from a male friend, their couple friend, and she could handle it. So I think it's very important to have a close friend of the opposite gender. Please don't have an affair with them, it's going to mess up things.
Very nice.
I
Yes, Rajat, now
want
the
I
question to you.
No, I can. I also wanted to add
Yeah.
just to what she was saying. I think, being senior and having worked with a lot of cases, you always think of adding something when others are talking
I
about,
love
and
it. You're
I think you
welcome.
must you must give me that chance.
Of
Of
course.
course.
Of course.
So uh, 30, 30 years back when I was in Europe, and one of the phenomena I saw there was what's called men's groups. Men would
Yeah.
get together, and these were men who were highly successful in their lives. They had reached the pinnacle of their career. They had done everything except for one difference, except for one thing. They were failing in their relationships. They could not understand the
Mm.
women they were close with who had either left them or who was planning to leave, who was initiating divorce. And they came to the group specifically that because they were confused, because they were scared, because they could not do that. That phenomena grew actually a lot in Europe. It is not talked about because no men came to talk about it. This is something which has also started happening in India. For many men today, relationships are extremely complex. They are not able to understand that. The way they have grown up, and the kind of women they want to marry, the kind of women they marry, and the way she grows, they are unable to cope with that. That is true
Mm.
with many men, and I'm not generalizing to all men, but many men. And this is a problem that we see today, that many men today find relationships very complex and are asking for help. So this is one of the changes that I see having taken place.
Yeah,
It
Rajat.
has.
Great.
Yeah,
Mm.
Rajat. So, what would you say are the relationship issues men face with respect to women? First, we answer that, and then the woman.
Mm.
Yes.
I think the most important thing is that confusion, not able to understand, because it's like many men, for example, who come to me for therapy, they come with the thing that everything was going fine. What happened suddenly one day? So the thing is, everything was not going fine for all this, and that is why everything did not, something didn't turn out fine one day. So the thing is, as you explore that, you find that men very often miss very subtle signs in their relationship. I mean, these men, they missed subtle signs where the women were trying to tell them that something is wrong, do something about it. They talked about their emotions, they expressed it in different ways. The man did not take it significant in a significant way
Mm.
or give it importance. When finally, when one day the woman said, "Okay, it is enough. I'm not, going to take that anymore, and this is the end." So it's shock. It's a kind of surprise for men that how when everything was going all right, something suddenly, went okay. So this is one of the major issues that you find with such men, that uh, you, they feel so. You find virtually every kind of issues today that men face, and they bring to therapy. They want to talk about it. There is depression. There is issues to do with I cannot control my violence. I could not do so. There is puzzlement. I just dealt with someone who could not understand why his wife left him, and she had already decided to leave. Then he came for therapy. He said, "Can I change her now?" So I said, "Look, you can try, but it is too late for you. That's the way it seems, right?" So the issues in therapy changed to, okay, I cannot bring her back. He did try. Despite my telling him not to do so, he called her up. He went outside, with a rose outside her apartment. Nothing worked, right? So then he started realizing the changes that he need to make within himself, and therefore he worked through that. So on the one extreme, you have such men who are beginning to find that the relationship which they thought they would take for granted, which would work for them, did not work out. On the other side, you also have men who have issues to do with control issues, who have violence, uh, who are having extramarital relationships. So it can be a whole gamut of relationships, and this is common to both. I don't think there is
This is.
any
Yeah.
difference, right?
Yes, Raksha, you want to say
Yeah,
something?
I wanted to say about extramarital relationship. So, in the last 1 year, we are actually getting increasingly, we're getting far more queries of women in an affair than men.
That is.
So it's I think the urban scenario, or at least it must be equal, because women feel perhaps more guilty, or I don't know what happens, but they are approaching us a lot more than men. And women are getting into relationships with their trainers, their music teachers, because of their need for attention, which probably is not getting filled. and they cloak this need for attention as love. This is a big issue that I'm kind of seeing now. This need of us of constantly wanting love, the romantic love, and not being able to understand that love changes its face. So this need for this romance love which media sells is causing huge issues, I think.
Right. So
Can I
yes,
comment
Yeah.
on that a little,
yes,
your
yes,
permission?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Of course,
I think
Raja.
it's on extramarital relationships. What we see in therapy today is that, by and large, most men have a extramarital relationship when they know that their partner or their wife is totally there for them, and women are having extramarital relationships when they're actually giving on that relationship. So women give up. They try, many of them, and I'm not saying that impulsive cases are not there, but by and large, when a woman gets into a relationship and she finds that her needs are not going to be met within this, right? So then she decides to go and having an extramarital relationship. I can tell you a case where it happened recently. There was this couple, very attractive, both of them, and the woman, she started having a relationship outside, and she came to me for therapy because she felt sometimes, very guilty, and she said that I gave up on this because I realized I cannot elicit those feelings from him which I so desperately wanted. So I said, did something happen for you to realize? She said, yes. Sometime back, he went for a business trip, and I discovered some letters that he had written to this girl. And she was the host's daughter. And I realized suddenly that what I have been trying for all these years to elicit in him, I could not do that. And the next day, I decided this relationship is over for me. So this kind of a ending of a relationship takes place in many women's minds when they start having a relationship. That is something which we are saying. Men by and large have a relationship when they know that the woman is there for them and they feel that they won't leave. So therefore, I very often tell the women in therapy, don't give your man the feeling that you are totally there for them. And they say, you are taking
Yeah.
away the romance from our life. I said, yeah, it is better to take away that, and not to come to grief later when he believes that you are totally there, because that makes him more susceptible to allurement. So just be careful. Don't say things like that you are totally there for them, and things like that. And
Yeah.
as what you rightly said also, that there are statements which the media and others, for example, love is forever, or I cannot. I mean, in one such lecture, I asked the girls that what is the most romantic statement, and they said, I cannot live without him. And I said, that's a suicidal statement, because if a situation happens that you have to live without him, he goes away, what will you do? You saying to yourself day and night that you can't live without him, you are actually going towards a suicidal ideation and feeling and developing that. The girls were very angry with me. They said, you have taken away our romance. I said, I would better take that away, but I have seen so many people attempting suicide that I think it is better to be pragmatic and realistic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I make a point on your point.
Ah, please, please, Raksha,
Well,
just go.
So when I was putting this book together, I went all across India and I interviewed marriage therapists, divorce lawyers, relationship coaches. So what I got a data from them is 97% of the extramarital affairs actually just break. They die their own sweet death if it is not discovered. Okay. So, only in extreme cases. So even if the woman gets love and romance, it's got a shelf life. And when that's over, the relationship runs its own course. So only 3% of the marriages, according to them in India, actually breaks because of an affair. Or, when there is the relationship is very, very bad, maybe very abusive, where maybe the man is there is no money in the marriage, or for real big things from the woman's point of view. Of course, man can get fall in love with his young secretary and could have a lot of financial power to do things, but
Yeah. So
anyway.
initially, when we started off, Rajat, you said there is no difference in between men and women, and they're both the same. And then slowly we come to the nuances, and that's what we want to
Yeah.
discuss. What are the nuances? Because that's when the relationship, if everything was the same, we wouldn't have this whole divide. And so, with that, I want to ask another question: Is Rajat, what do you think men need to know about women in terms of the relationship, which means in terms of sexual relationship and in terms of emotional needs, everything? What would you go? And then I will ask Raksha that. And
Sure.
yeah,
Could you repeat the question because I didn't
yeah,
understand? What do
okay.
what do
No,
men
no, not
want women
women.
to
It
know?
is a, yeah. What do you
Men.
think men need to know about women in terms of, what do you, as a psychologist, what do you think men need to know about women? Because we are talking here that there is men don't know that women need this need, or women need there is a need for affection, approval, and in women. So what do you think you would say, tell the men that okay, these are the needs women have, whether it is physical needs, emotional needs. What do you think men need to know, because they don't know? Many men wouldn't even know that a woman is feeling lonely, or a woman needs approval. This is the way. So, how would you, what do
I
you
think
think men need to know? And as a man, also, as a man, you are a man. So, it should be both internal and external. If
yeah,
you could tell
I
us your case, it will be
sure.
fun.
I think it's a very broad topic, and I would say that men need to know many men need to know many things. First of all,
Okay.
like for example, when we used to run programs for preventing sexual assault, and we ran that extensively in some of the areas in Delhi. Like you may not know that in East Delhi, for a long time, it held the record of having the highest number of sexual assault cases in India, right? And the law enforcement, they asked us to start a program for there. We ran it for almost 7 years, where we would go into some of those areas and we checked about how men and women, how girls and boys they grow up. One of the most common feedbacks we heard from the schools, the girls, is that आप हमसे क्यों बात कर रहे हैं? Go and talk to the men, right? अच्छा ठीक है, fine. What do we talk to the men? You talk to them that we are human beings. We are, we have um, we have flesh and blood, we think, we also have feelings. They see us as objects, right? So where does a man learn to see a woman as an object? In home, right? It is not something that is taught to him. And this is something that a man first of all needs to know, that a woman is not an object. I mean, it sounds very simplistic, but I can tell you from having worked in some of the worst areas in Delhi where sexual assault is the highest, and also in India, is that those men, they who assault, they do not think women as human beings who have sexual feelings. In fact, they are puzzled that women have sexual feelings too. So उनको भी sexual feelings होती है क्या, right? So I said, we anyone who has a body has sexual feelings. It is integrated with it is integrated with that. So it I used to take in Tihar jail groups with pedophiles. I mean, I worked in the pedophile ward for you know many years, and one of the most important things that we had to tell them is that a woman has feelings. If a man understands that, I would feel that at least 30 to 35% problems that you know uh, will definitely suffer a reduction. So this is something which a man definitely needs to know. It should be taught to him, and unfortunately, there are very few programs that actually go ahead and teach that. Right? A man should be, for example, asked or included in all the functions at a home. Right? One of the countries where sexual assault was one of the lowest was Sweden, and it is no longer so, because I think many things have changed, and I have worked extensively in Sweden. And one of the reasons it was found through research was why it was so low was because men and women shared tasks. Whatever tasks men did, women also did. uh, Women and men shared many of the responsibilities together, right? So it gave the feeling that we are not very much different from each other. Of course, there are some differences, but by and large, in growing up, in raising children, the standards established were the same. And that was one reason which was found that sexual violence or sexual assault was so low in that country. country, right? So this is one of the first things that I would say that men need to learn about
Okay.
women.
Raksha, I come to
Okay.
you. No,
Yeah.
wait,
Oh, yeah.
I just want to qualify it a little more. That what
Hmm.
do you think? If you could, because you are working in that space also, what are the expectations that women have from men, and what men should know at least to keep the relationship, that
Yeah.
alive, or maybe. So, what would
Actually,
you
I'm
say?
very, yeah, I'm very excited about this. And here I have my answer is two part.
Yeah.
One part is absolutely about the whole sexual point because we have a lot of sexologists. We get a lot of sex queries. Okay. I mean, queries related to sex. And again, a huge chunk is from women about faking orgasms, about the men not knowing how to pleasure them, about them not demanding they don't know each other's zones, they have not experimented. Of course, the sexual culture in our country is everything is hidden, right? I mean, I remember what we learned about sex in the 8th grade in that one silly chapter in biology. Whatever people understand about sex is from porn, which is absolutely weird. So we you wouldn't believe the kind of so we got a query from an IS officer who had not consummated the marriage in 2 years because he didn't know how. This really happened. I mean, it's crazy. So I think one of the biggest, and the thing is, here I go back to the patriarchy again. For this Indian mom, son is God. He can't do anything wrong. And the woman must always put herself, understand him. So he doesn't understand that he needs to, her pleasure is as important for her, for him as it's, as himself. So I think the very big issue is, why ask your woman, go back and ask, did you fake orgasm? Please help me help you, help me understand you. So I think a lot more democracy, a lot more communication is required in the bedroom. And if I could, I would tell most of the couples, I mean, to men and women both, that please understand democracy and equality in the bedroom. Okay. And so that's my one part. The second part is, men have to understand, because I don't know all those terminologies, I just know common language and the things we get, that when a woman complains or speaks about something, most of the time she doesn't want it fixed. She just wants the person to hear. I know it's been spoken about in a lot of books. Okay, just listen, that's it. And just say, so there was this conference, a huge problem was solved between a couple by the man just saying that, oh my god, you must be hurting so much inside. Just listen and say, oh, it must be tough for you, because that's what she needs. She, and today, with so especially in the lockdown, with the woman, with women working online from home or whatever they're supposed to, managing the kids, managing the kitchen, managing the cleaning, without the help coming in. And yet the man doesn't lift a finger. So when she speaks, listen. She wants you to listen. Another thing I wanted to bring here is that women, you don't know that while you are against patriarchy, you're not resisting it enough. You're not really coming in. So even you are scared of saying that this is not right. So it's both ways. The man thinks it's okay. My mother always worked. So what's the big deal? So anyway, these are the two things. So when a woman comes to you, don't try and fix stuff. Okay, listen. And the first is, please be democratic in bed.
Okay, there are questions also coming in. Raksha, I want you to just elaborate a little more here and tell, what do women need to know about men? Because it shouldn't be. It's been a story only about women. Because I will, I have these serials that are coming in, the four shots, and they are
Mhm.
they are like, it is said they are empowerment. And there's one joke, a woman, if she has multiple partners, it's considered empowerment. But a man doing the same is
Absolutely.
characterless.
Yeah, yeah,
Today's
yeah.
definition, we are talking of the urban middle. It's come into mainstream. So I want you to tell me, if you could tell, what do
Hmm.
women need to know about men?
So,
Because yeah,
yeah, sorry, please
yeah,
go
yeah, please.
ahead.
And then
Okay.
I'll take the question also.
So, what I think is, while we want, you'll find that I'm at times contradicting myself, but then it's always about negotiation, the couple space. So while the women say that, okay, I need this, I need equality, I need to go out, I need my space. But what about the traditional spheres where you still want the man to be there? Women, are you looking after your financials? Are you taking charge of that? Are you so for women who are, let's say, girls of the only girls of their parents? Do you still expect that they should provide for themselves? Where is the equality in your head? Okay, so I would want them, while you are wanting your space in every other field, are you also empowering yourself? Do you know about your car? Do you know about the engine? Why not? No. Do you know how to change a tire? Why can't you do it? That's one. The other thing is, another thing that I think is, let go. Don't do not go to men for every decision. Make your own decision. So uh, that's a very, very, I know it sounds very simple, but you'll find that this codependency is very big. What should I make for dinner? Which couple should we invite? What should we do with our kids in this? So take your own decisions. I mean, don't go to the man for everything. And this men have this issue of shutting the women down. When they shut you down, don't go running after them. Okay, wait, let them face their own issues, let them have a problem. Don't go and try fix things for them, even when they don't want to. Here I want to make a personal thing. My husband's a smoker. It bothers me to death. I have done everything under the sun to, so we don't have to keep fixing men, as they don't have to keep helping us. I am telling you, if I could just let go of this one thing, we would not be fighting so much. I mean, you have to let go, because eventually we all have our individual journeys and we are part of each other's journey. So I think that basic respect has to come.
Yeah, I just want to put in here one thing because I mean, I just cannot resist also. I'm resisting. I'm saying that is bothering because the
Yeah.
conversation is about the reason why we want the conversation to be on men also is that because it's not always a one-way traffic. Rajat, I
Yes.
am heading a few of the committees, internal complaints committees, and women this, and many of the laws now today. I mean, the men are at the receiving end. Of course, we can
Mm.
say historically we are resetting and we are, but all that aside, many of the men and they don't have a voice. It's like we've silenced one, we are silencing even their imagination because where do they go? And many of the times, in fact, the laws are so strict that if even if it is of course, a no is a no. I will say that again. At whatever point a woman says a no, it's a no. But many of the times, I mean, there are cases I'm talking about personally also, where no matter what, the boy had to spend 6 months in jail for a relationship where both were equally involved. And
Mm.
when the boy wanted to break off, the rape case, the girl put the rape case and she said. And so, where is that individual choice and individual freedom? I know it's not the, I mean, of course, this is despite women have been exploited and everything else. And I'm quite a strong person for for all the rights. But this is one phenomena that I want to bring on the table today. So, Rajat, what do you think? How does a man? Because it's not about a woman's needs. Are even the media is exploring multiple relationship. The serial, which I don't know if you've seen, Four Shots More, is one which is espoused as a very empowering serial, but it only has it's a different.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not, yeah, I don't have great views about it.
yeah, because
Whatever
it's
happened.
not just because you can sleep with any and everybody doesn't mean you're empowered.
Exactly.
Because that emotional thing, and if you read it, it's still the emotional dependency. But Rajit, I want to ask you, what is it that how does a man really? Because it should be about women should be also able to tell. And what is it that as a man you feel that where is that what is lacking? Why can't we reach out, or why is it that we are not able to take the abuse that men are also they also don't know, they are equally lost in this new term empowered women and they don't know what to do with it.
Okay. I think that's a very significant question, and let me again speak from my experience. I have worked with the crime cell of Delhi police for almost 10 years. We got a lot of false cases. Okay. Uh, what you talked about, men being
Yeah.
at the receiving end. Yes, there were false cases lodged against men, right? Now, if There are false cases lodged against men for also sexual assault, for relationship violence, for also things. It's a problem of the law that they don't investigate that. And today they take on a defensive position that let the court decide. So the person you described spending 6 months in jail, if the police had taken a deep investigation and done it thoroughly, then probably that person would not have spent 6 months in jail, right? The problem lies most often in investigation. Why is the police so defensive? Because for years together, there was nothing to do, there was nothing done about women's issues. Whether, and even now, I mean, I'm not saying that everything has changed and become rosy and marigold. No. For years, for example, the police would not lodge a case against sexual assault on women, on relationship violence by women, right? Men got away.
Mm.
Right. Now, what happened is that the pendulum has gone to the other extreme. The Supreme Court has pulled up, in many cases, calling it shoddy investigation, calling it corruption, calling it this. So today, and there have been many very high-profile sexual assault cases, many of which I have been involved in. And one of the things that the attitude in the law enforcement is that we don't want to take any risks. If a woman comes and complains, let us go ahead and do that. So the investigation, the entire process of interrogation, what we call classic investigation, doesn't take place. The man is arrested and he is just gone ahead. If you ask that, did you check up whether this man actually abused or not? Did you use some of the basic criteria? You will have many police officers say, let the court do that, let the court decide that. We don't want to go that. Now, why does that happen in society? Why is it that, and I can tell you this is from my personal experience. I have testified in hundreds of cases in courts where a simple statement by me, and I'm a psychologist, when I wrote, I was asked that, you know this is something that flies against totally in the nature of the FIR and what has been lodged. I said, because that is what I see, that is what the woman or that is what the man has told me, right? So there have been many false accusations. And this is a
Yeah,
problem wherever the criminal justice system is in transition or becomes weak enough in order to not understand who's a true victim. Either a man or a woman can be a victim, right? There is no thing about it. Women are more victims than men historically, even now, right? At the same time, it is important that the law enforcement, the judiciary understand the scientific principles, the things that make a person a victim. They go by stereotypes. They go by that this person should be a victim. For a long time, for example, in courts, we believed that if a woman did not shout, then it means that she was an accomplice to the rape. It was something that was done with her consent. Studies show that, and I remember in talking about it in National Judicial Academy once with the judges, and I talked about I showed the parts of the brain that go silent, why a woman goes silent, and many of the judges said that I wish we had this knowledge at the beginning of our career, right? Now, are we making enough efforts to even get that knowledge to them today? No, if you ask me, period. No. Some judges know this, some policemen know this, not all, right? So there is a transition that our society is in. Our society is in a place where the criminal justice system has actually fallen apart, right? There is no time for investigation for a lot of people. Just go to an average police station, you would know, right? That they give the minimal amount of time. So there are issues related to that, and we have come to this level. Men also are at a receiving end. There is no doubt about it today. But that is, and there are women who are fraudulent, who lodge false cases against them, and you will find that everywhere, right?
yeah,
You
Rajat.
stand up and take a
Yeah.
stance.
Yes, Rajat, it is not about the police thing. It is not about the judiciary. But I was wanting if you could elaborate on how do men deal with this? If there is abuse, emotional abuse, or if there is any kind of if they are if they are in a similar situation, how do men deal or how do men talk about it? Because men don't talk about it. They will not
Mm.
go and tell about it. So what would you give as a psychologist? That's what because the court
Yeah,
is a different thing. But I wanted
I
more
see
in a
that as
general.
I see, because I see that as a larger problem. I see it linked to justice. About the issue that we are talked about. Your question about how do men deal with it,
How can
right?
men deal with it? Yeah.
Yeah,
What
men.
is this?
Yeah, how can? Okay,
Yeah.
men today deal with it by remaining silent because they are not believed, right? So they, I mean, if they they can deal with it only if they have a supporting structure around them who would understand and believe that they are, they have not done anything, or they have not committed any, they have not committed any crime. They need to have someone to talk to them, to share that, who believes in that. There are very few people actually you would find who would do that today. So, when we talk about options, we also need to see whether that option is available to the people or not, right? And one of the ways in which men can do that is, what they have done is, to make a group for themselves where they talk of false accusations and bring that up, like it happened in USA, that many people who were victims, who were falsely made victims, became a group, talked about it, and then they started raising their voice against it. That's the only way. Individually, you have no chance today to talk about yourself, because if you give that option to somebody, what is the point? You have to form a group which puts political pressure to say that, hey, look at these cases more carefully and more stringently. Don't let innocent people go to jail. Don't let innocent people suffer. So that is what we need as a society.
Raksha, if I put this question to you from your counseling this, what do you think? How do men, what is it that men need to be taught to deal with? Because women are very good with emotions. And how do men deal with?
So,
How
you know
would,
what? I would strongly recommend men to seek help. So one problem is that ego thing is ego comes in between. How can they tell their friends or their family that they are facing emotional, verbal, whatever abuse, physical abuse? We get a lot of queries of men being beaten up by their women. So of course, so I think you have to get out. You have to seek help. Go to a professional. If you don't want to go to your friends and all, I think we should go, the men should go and seek help. Because very often, we now speak about this a lot, we get very half baked solutions from our friends who probably don't know how to deal with such a situation. So, I think it's extremely important to seek professional help to even deal with your own emotion. We got a query once where the man was in severe depression. He didn't know that he was in depression because of the issue between his mother and the wife. Okay, both had. So this is a very common case of men being squished between the mother and the wife. He didn't know that he was in severe depression, and the doctor started him on psychiatric medicines. This is through us, through a counselor and then a psychiatrist. So I think to even identify that, listen, this is bothering you, because as men in our society, we are only supposed to give prominence to anything to do with money and stuff, so we don't process our emotions. So if you can't process your emotions, seek help. I would just say that.
so, Rajat,
Yeah,
we are not talking, we've reached that, we're talking about emotions and differences there.
sure.
So men are from Mars, women are from Venus. What does it really, and how does one bridge that gap
Yeah. First of all,
from
my
the from our own lives? Yeah.
yeah, I think men are not from Mars, and women are not from Venus. Both are from Earth. I think we need to start with that, right? So to make a statement like that itself says that as if we are poles apart, and there is no matching ground, right? Which I don't believe is true. In fact, statements like this do a lot of harm. To say that we are different. In fact, jokes about why women don't understand, and why
Men
men
can't
don't
read
understand.
map. Yeah.
They in fact bring up stereotypes, which is important to break down and stop process. We both we both live under one roof. We both have to share many things. We have to see our commonality and bring that up and share that. The way you raise your daughter and the way you raise your son needs to be similar. Like one of my friends, he had twins some time back, a boy and a girl. So when I went, he was playing with them, and he was throwing up, the children, right, and catching them. It's a very common game between father and children. When he threw up his son, he threw him up really high. When he threw up his daughter, he very politely, just went up so that he had to just do it. And I was just telling him that, hey, you can do the same with both, right? right? So he says, was I not the same with both? I said, no, you are not. You were throwing the boy really up high, and you were throwing the girl really slow. So he says, okay, I'll do that. But then he said, it is so difficult for me. Can a girl actually go up that much and still come back and not be hurt? I said, no, I have done that with my daughter. So, you know, you have to start somewhere with common observations which are there all around. Like if we talk about equality, consent, respect, and trust, issues which are very necessary for healthy masculinity and sexuality, you have to grow up in that environment. You have to perceive that in order to have it in yourself. You cannot suddenly one day bring it in yourself through a workshop or going to a therapist for sessions. It is something that we feel that we must bring in ourselves with wide programs in at earlier stages as possible for both parents and children.
Raksha, how would you answer
Okay.
this?
So I would say that a man woman or a couple relationship is extremely complex. It's layered. And if you add years it gets even more difficult. So I think we have to begin with the acceptance that we are going to hurt each other a lot. Where the other hurts the most, we are going to do it. Having said that, and we will also protect them to the best of our abilities. So this whole dichotomy stays together. So I have a very cute illustration on my website which says, "Shall I kill him today or make his favorite cup of tea?" And there was this line by Milan Kundera who said that we may think everything is beautiful with our relationship, that we are the luckiest person alive to have him or her, that he understands us, provides, cares, nurtures. And within an hour, we may think, what have we done wrong to deserve this guy or this girl, right? And what separates these two frames it's not miles, it's inches. So I would say that it's going to go like that, the graph. Of course, once if you meditate and if you are calm and if you continuously reflect, the up and down can come, can gradually, I think, flatten. But I think the most important thing in a couple relationship, once you've hurt the other or after the conflict, is to sit, write down your points, sit with the other person. When you both are in a good space, discuss, communicate, tell him or tell her what has hurt you, ask them, so discuss. So I think to expect them not to hurt, or it's not going to work. We will hurt each other. How do we resolve that hurt? Even if we resolve it by 2% the next time, I think it's leading somewhere. So, and I don't agree that don't expect. We are going to expect. I really don't like that, you know, no expectations. How do you not expect? You are going to. So, learn how to deal with the expectation. I mean, learn how to manage the expectation and communicate.
Right. Communicate is come at all levels continuously, and
Yeah.
and also there's a question: what is important to women is not important to men, and vice versa. There are some questions that have come in, and so how would you deal with that, Raksha? What is important to men is not really important to women, and what is
Yeah.
important to women is not important to men, and that also becomes a big issue.
Absolutely. So the thing is, you don't have to fight on pick your battles, like they say, and have your own independent lives. So what is this whole thing about? That is why I dislike Facebook and all this social media a lot, because we post happy pictures of a couple, but the real marriage or the real relationship is between the two happy pictures which no one sees. So why does the journey of the couple has to be together? You can be, co-passengers, who not it is possible that you're not together a lot of time. So what is important to you? If it is really really important to you, sit and communicate, but negotiate. So sit and let go of things which are not that important, but communicate. And don't think that here, Chavi, I want to make a point. So we have a very different system. So initially, we lived in joint families, right? Now I think 81% of India lives in a nuclear family. So we always had Our different needs were met by different people, which is not
Yes,
happening in a nuclear family today. So,
absolutely.
you had a cool uncle for XYZ needs, you had a Devrani to bitch, you had, the Devar to romance, you a little bit, you have your cousins. So things were met by, by different people in the family. But now you want the same thing from the spouse. He should bring excitement, he should be the provider, I should know him, but he should also be mysterious. It doesn't work like that. So understand, we are living in a very different a world where we are going to that one person for all our needs. So what you
Yes.
think is important may not be important. Try and figure that out.
Yeah, that's very nice because yes, you're right. There was the they were to flirt with, and there was uh, you could go and crib to anybody, and cribbing is so
Yeah.
important for women. If we,
The Devrani Jithani would crib about the mother-in-law.
yeah,
Now you're
yeah,
cribbing about your mother-in-law to your husband.
and that's not it. It is very dangerous.
Yeah. So
It
find
will
your people. So you know what? Find
find.
your people for important things.
Yeah, there is a question here. Mrinalini has asked: the framework of relationships are being influenced by the demands of economy. So, Rajat, we'll go to you first. What is your view on this? I repeat the question. The framework of
Yeah.
relationships are being influenced by the demands of economy.
When she says demands of economy, I do not understand what exactly she means by that, right? The relationship is affected by many things. It is affected by sociology, it's
Yeah,
affected by geography, in fact, it's affected by economy, it is affected by your mental state, it is affected by so many things. So when you say demands of economy, which particular demand you have in mind, right? I would slightly, divert the issue for a
yeah.
while.
Hmm.
I work with I have I work with women who have been severely abused, right? And I understand that what Raksha was saying, that you can sit down and write the points, but most of the women that I have seen, and they are a fairly large number, they didn't have time to write down all that. They had to think
Yeah.
of safety, run away,
Yeah.
and find a shelter for themselves. And our institution provided shelter. So you, what you have to teach probably a lot of women, when is that how to protect yourself, how to do self-preservation. And one of the things that I always talk about in my talks is that be careful about the relationship that you are getting into. Right now, to the, the largest number of phone calls about violence, relationship violence, came around 11 o'clock in the night. Right? It's always there. It's all over the world. Maximum calls come at that time. In fact, that's called the violent time. Right? For self, women get abused at that time, and very often a large percentage of them have to quickly think that how do I protect myself, my children, and get out. Right? There is no time. And most women who report violence, who talk about violence, do that at a much later stage, when almost all options are exhausted. Right? The man will not go for therapy. He just doesn't believe that there is something wrong with him. So you have to, that is actually a very much large picture of what happens in the name of relationship violence and what happens in relationships in today's world, right? So I think I would really ask every woman, I would really ask that, learn self-preservation. When you marry someone, don't think of how charming or how good he is, but how does he respond to anger? How does he respond to dissent?
Very true.
Does he understand that can both of you have an argument without him moving away? Most of us put our best sides when we find a life partner. We should choose who is going to be our best friend. That is the person I would say that to choose as a life partner. These are important lessons for men and women both, to understand and have a violent free relationship.
That's really really
Very, very
wonderfully
true.
put. That it's very true. But of course, I would just like to say that we are talking about two different levels of people. One is here, and I think abuse, people who are in severe abuse. Rajat, what you've told is that is the primary thing that people look at. How to preserve and how to run away.
Sure.
But most people don't. And Raksha is talking about where the violence is
Sure.
not so much. So we
Yeah,
can look at
it is.
where the relationship, there is something that can be done and where it can be workable. And so, of course, there are more questions, and there is, they want to, there are more questions, but I will also want to know that who is, I'll ask both of you, Raksha, who is stronger emotionally, when people come to you, both men and women. So, who do you think is able to cope with the relationship breakup, or who's stronger emotionally?
Okay, now there are two things. So if you're
Financial,
asking
we
about,
keep
no, no,
financials
no, I'm
aside.
not even talking about financial. So if you're talking about relationship breakup,
Yeah.
hands down, women cannot deal with breakup as easily as men can. I have absolutely no doubt about it. We've got about 3,000 queries so far, and women somehow invest a lot in their relationship. And for them, they just can't handle breakup. So, from that point of view, it's far more difficult for them than even if we talk about divorce. A divorce, and also the way our society functions, a divorced man would be invited to a couple's party, but heaven's sake, if the divorced woman is pretty, the other women are going to shun her. So, even as a society, a single woman, after a certain age is looked at with suspicion. Okay. Having said that, I think breakups, I'm pretty clear about that. But if you talk about other aspects, I think women are emotionally far stronger. We are more. They are, they can manage. They can take in a lot more. They can sustain. I think women are definitely the stronger emotional creatures here. But when it comes to couple relationship, oh my God, the tables just get turned.
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Please.
Yeah, I have a slightly different opinion, point of view. I find that women are far more stronger in dealing with breakups than men. Women show more feelings when a breakup happens, men don't, right? And when a relationship breaks up, most often women are aware of the subtle signs that a relationship is not working. Men are not. Men don't pick up emotions. Men are not good at it. They are not taught to. So when a breakup actually happens, it doesn't come across as a surprise for most women. For most men, it comes across as a surprise. And since men are not so equipped to deal with emotions, they crack up, they do much more. Like women show much more emotions, and that is one reason why they also get out of it much faster. That is what we have seen.
Okay. So yeah, we have. I think men go to the gym and women hit the ice cream tubs. Also for men, also for
I
men,
mean, let's
you
talk
know,
of a rural women. I mean, let me talk
yeah,
of
I'm talking about the
semi-urban
urban
rural
India.
women, right?
Yeah, I'm
You
talking
you
about
see
urban
them
India.
surprisingly getting out of it because they say वो तो हमेशा से ऐसा ही था उनका तो ऐसे करना ही था so क्या हुआ था नहीं नहीं हमें तो पता था कि there was something which was not going okay. Women are aware of subtle signs in a relationship whether it is working or not, and studies have shown that again and again in every culture. And it's also, if you see from the evolutionary biology point of view, women are taught to be stronger than men because when men walk out, who takes care of the children? So it is nature's way of making women stronger so that she can survive and take care, right? It's unfortunate that
Absolutely.
it is to be that way, but it is true. Women
Yeah.
survive. You see them more. You see them with more emotions. You don't see men. They are suffering inside. They will not bring that out, right? They will either have a heart attack or they will have something else at a later stage. They bottle it all up. But I do believe
Yeah.
that women are far stronger.
No, in this, I just want to make a point that this is basically based on the queries we get from, men and women between the ages of 18 to 35. And when they are dating or when premarital, at that point, a breakup it hits the women harder, is what my experience has been. But I'm sure that's the other
Yeah,
thing is also happening. Yeah.
sure. The women show it. That's what I feel. The men don't.
पर इतना
Yeah.
वेट कैसे बढ़ जाता है सर फिर खा खा के
Raksha, as a
That's different.
psychologist here
I would say,
also, everybody is
yeah.
saying women are more resilient.
Okay.
No,
So
it's
great. I
okay.
mean, they
No,
are,
no, no,
yeah, yeah,
no, no.
absolutely.
That's we'll give it to you. It's you.
Absolutely.
Rajat, I would want to ask you, what is your idea of an empowered man and an empowered woman? Both, and then we'll go to
Okay, I think if you talk about empowered man and empowered women, it is something that where they both come together, understand each other's strengths and weaknesses and vulnerabilities at the same time. We, the sexes today, the genders that don't know each other's strengths and vulnerabilities, right? I, for example, discovered that women can, you know, stand for a much longer time than a man because internally her body can stand for a much longer time. And I said, okay, this is something I didn't know. I mean, I remember going back in the school, the girls could stand much more than I could. And I realized that they have, and then later I was going through a piece of research which actually said that women can withstand far more. So studies like this tell us a lot about each other's strengths and vulnerabilities, and this I believe should be taught in the class in schools, right, at the earliest stage, so that you don't think each other as weak or each other has to be avoided or being scared of each other, right? So that education is very important.
yeah. Here, there's one thing that Shanti has said, Shanti Bhim. She says, "Isn't acceptance everything?" And I think that's we have to accept, that there are differences, and we accept our children as they are. We accept everybody, and that acceptance, I think, is something
Is
that she's pointed
important.
out. With
Yeah,
Raksha, what would you say?
I
acceptance
would,
is taught. Acceptance is
Acceptance is
something
taught.
cannot be
That's it.
enforced.
Yes, of
Acceptance is
course.
something that you go through.
Yeah.
Acceptance is something that you learn. You cannot be. It cannot be done as a piece of
Yes. You have
moral
to learn
teaching.
that.
Let's be very
Yeah.
clear about that, right?
Yes.
So that's how you accept, and that is why I say that it should be done through the school, like
Through the school.
education,
Yeah.
taught through a process.
Yes. Raksha, what would you say?
okay, so in just one line each, I think an empowered man is who understands and executes the concept of respect, not just with his parents, his colleagues, his friends, but his children and women, the woman. For a woman, empowered woman is know self respect and understand respect and ask for it. So I think when you know and you ask for it, you are empowered.
All right. And so, I mean, it's been a interesting conversation, and we've learned many things. Rajat, one cliche that you feel should be out of everybody's books, regarding men or women. One cliche. I did use so many, but the one thing that you
Yeah,
should
I
say
think
is
I, I think the last one fits the bill very well. That men are from Mars and
Mars.
women are from Venus. Please, I mean,
Right. Okay.
we are both from Earth.
All
Yeah.
right.
So if we can do that, that's something I should say that should be done at the earliest, right?
Yeah.
We would
And we
emphasize differences, emphasize the similarities, and emphasize the strengths that we both have, and that is how we can come together. Yeah.
Raksha, which is that one or two or three cliches you feel we should all dump them in the
Okay, I'm going to be a little bold here.
oh please.
So, women, it's not that women don't want sex. Maybe you're not a good lover. That's one thing I would really, really want to put in the bin. If she doesn't want to have sex, maybe you're not doing something right, or maybe both of you have not spoken about it or solved that. So, yeah, that's it. That's what I would like to end at.
So
Thank you.
May I say
you
something on
yes,
that?
yes. Yes, Rajat, even
Yeah,
I
just no, not on what you
want
know.
to say something.
I,
Yeah, Rajat, please you go ahead.
I mentioned this research by Luan, Brizendine, where she said that men think of sex every minute and women think of it in certain once in several days, and I think a lot of research was done, and it was found that why women think of sex once in several days, because they have a lot of other things to take care of, right? Okay, they have to think of the children, they have to think of the home, they have to think of other
Yeah,
things.
yeah, they have a
And
lot
this
on their mind.
and this I mean, this kind of generalization, this kind of research, which is, actually it was no research, it was just a statement that she made. She was a very famous psychiatrist, and she did that. This kind of statement, which has got no validity, that should be prevented. Let us
Mm.
understand the constraints and difficulties under which we both work, right? If a village woman doesn't want sex, she says that if you ask her, she will say, "मैं तो सोचती नहीं हूँ," right? That's because she has got so many things to do at home, right? It is not because her body doesn't want it, she suppresses it. So please understand the difficulties and the compulsions under which we both work. And if you talk about that, if you make sense of that in classrooms, probably that is why I think we can bridge the gap between what leads to so many differences. Yeah.
So, Raksha, you want to say something to that? It seems you want to, so I will. We don't end it.
No, no, no.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
you can.
okay, I let me add. So, like, you don't have to think about food or you don't have to think about sleep. You really don't need to think about sex. You do. The only time you don't think
Yes.
about sex is when it is not pleasurable for you. So, I come back to my original point that there is some miscommunication and there is no equality there because it's an instinct, it's a basic need, I think, from what
Yes.
I understand through the sexologists that I have interviewed.
Rajat, there is this, you've seen this picture, no? What's on a man's mind? Freud. And so, why is it said that what's on a man's mind? And yesterday also asked the same thing, they said, people said it's three things: women, wine, and food. So, why do you think, from where did this come from then? If, I mean, on a lighter note, and otherwise, I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
you interpret Freud for us now.
Let me say that since you quoted Freud, Freud was also quite a
A man.
misogynist. He said
Yes,
that,
exactly.
what do women, I mean, the joke with him was, he said that he raised his hand and he says, "I don't understand what women want." I mean, he showed the cultural things of his era by making such a statement, right? And that was a time when, women were considered not having basic instincts or basic feelings about how to handle themselves. There was an ad, I think, which tried to bridge that gap, which it was called "You Have Come a Long Way, Baby." I don't know if you have seen it.
Yes,
It talked up. It was a very famous ad, and it continued for decades. It showed that what a woman, it was mostly a cigarette ad, and it showed a woman carrying a cigarette 100 years back in her pocket, and somehow it gets out and she gets caught, and she's humiliated, and 100 years later she's smoking a cigarette. So it was, the cigarette ad was to say, "You have come a long way,
Hmm.
baby," right? So we had people who did have that attitude, and sexuality as a feeling was denied to women for a long time. And it was, I agree that it was patriarchy, and it is something that women are right now breaking through. And I think that healthy sexuality, which depends upon respect, trust, and other issues, are really coming to the fore. I mean, you mentioned some time back about pornography. I mean,
yes,
men and women see pornography very differently. Most women see pornography as a betrayal, right? They say that you have transferred your sexual energy, your sexual direction in another way. So, and this is one of the issues that come up in therapy right now quite often, when they talk about women talk about men watching pornography as a betrayal. I mean, these are very strong feelings that many women have, and I think men are beginning to understand that why an activity which they consider so banal and something so useless affects their partner so much and almost leads to divorce and separation. So I think these are important issues that need to be discussed in the open and brought about.
Raksha, you want to comment on this
No,
pornography
I think
being?
you said. No, no, I think you put it up ex- beautifully. So no, but pornography is a problem. because
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
what they show is not what the reality is. So
Absolutely.
it's a
In
big
fact,
problem. Yeah.
studies show that pornography completely takes away the sexual process. Like brain studies with people who watch pornography has shown that there is a sudden influx in the electrical activity. Now it is something, and it equally it goes down after watching pornography. So the thing is that it is not part of where you have intimacy, where you have closeness, and then it leads to sexuality. So it's very important. And I think another piece of research which has come about is that so many of the perpetrators, pedophiles, show begin their abuse by showing pornography to the victim. you know
Right.
I mean, if that alone is a factor, and I've seen many of them, they do that, and under the garb of that, the third piece of research which has been seen is that the images in pornography for some reason just almost get locked in some people's mind, and it is always men, it is not women. And those images that get locked in, they are not able to remove it, they take that to be the reality, and those are violent images, right? I
Right.
mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
there
It's a
was
big
one
problem. Yeah.
man, there was one, there was one man who talked about only the violent aspect of what it was and took that to be reality. He was a pedophile, and his fantasies were in that, right? So fantasies of, in fact, today's children have taken on a completely different turn,
Yeah,
which is
that's
like,
very true.
switch on and off. There is nothing that leads to build up, there is nothing that leads to a process where certain changes take place, of which fantasy is a real part. Now violent fantasy is the only part that operates and plays.
Raksha, I would want you to, because people come and that's a different class that you're dealing with. But is pornography a
Sorry, I lost you
big
there for a second. Is pornography a?
big problem
Oh,
and
yes,
relationship?
yes, yes, yes. We get a lot of queries where, the man will watch pornographic video, and as Dr. Rajat said, the woman is not very comfortable. And what it directly leads to, we get a lot of queries from, we get a lot of complaints from women, is that they then need to just finish the act with the woman. So, but here I think the bigger problem is that we are not educated in the sexual sphere. So I think the problem is that we are the land of Kama Sutra. I think Vatsayana's Kama Sutra is probably a very brilliant. So I had interviewed Prakash Kothari, and he told me a
Okay.
very very interesting fact. Actually, he's there a lot in the book and on our website. So a simple fact like a woman cannot orgasm with a man on top. Only 25% of women can. This basic information, I think, is not there. So I think we need to at least use pornography very with a lot of caution, and actually try and understand how the how sex works, or how pleasure what pleasure points are. So pornography is a huge problem, but I think there is no alternative. I don't know. Are couples approaching sexologists? Are women speaking out about the issues? What men think? Are they validating? Is this okay? Not okay? Where is the communication? So I think because they have no communication, they go to porn and then they just kind of satisfy themselves.
Yeah,
I
just
don't know
maybe
if,
two comments if I can
Star.
make.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
One is that today pornography has moved from an individual social problem to a public health problem. It's very important to know that. And second is that it is being seen more like a drug. It's similar like a drug. The way it gets you high, you immediately go high and then you come down, right? So it is something that has become a substitute for what was considered a natural process earlier. And the fact is that that is one reason why it is so linked to violence.
Yeah.
So
Right. Absolutely. I think it is also because of the two differences between pleasure and happiness. Whereas sex should lead to happiness, pleasure is more dopamine, or it releases
Very
more
true.
dopamine.
Very
Sex
true.
releases more dopamine, and dopamine is very addictive.
Yeah,
Whereas
very true.
pleasure involves a lot more. It's a longer process, and it has more of all the endorphins, and it should be a cocktail of all. So, with this, I think one last message that you would give Raksha. We'll go to Rajat. You give one message, and then I will end with Raksha.
Maybe
Uh,
Raksha first, and then I will give.
Oh gosh, okay.
Rajat, we go
Uh,
with it's a man's this. No, Raksha, we'll
yeah,
hold
let's,
it.
yeah,
It's a
please, of
man's.
course.
It's
And I get time to
conversation
think.
on, yeah, on and
I
about
will.
men. So yes,
I'll
Rajat.
just say that since we are talking about it, that please see sex as part of a larger relationship. So, and don't see sex as an act itself that you have to perform and commit. See that as part of a larger relationship, and that is why it is richer, fuller, and more deeply satisfying. Right? That's all.
Okay, I would say that couple relationships is precious. People don't die of boredom because you will get bored of your partner, but people do die of loneliness when the partner is not there. So let's focus on what can be salvaged and please seek help. If there is an issue, don't go to, half baked, friends with half baked ideas. Go to someone who's a specialist. Be vulnerable, open yourself, solve the damn problem. Because there's nothing as beautiful as a couple relationship, and you are each other's net, you are each other's safety net, and let's try and make that strong and beautiful.
So
Thank you. What about you, Chavi? Let's hear from you.
about this,
Yeah,
see, I think
your message.
my message is I am holding these conversations, and it's the reason why I'm holding is that somewhere I feel that empower if एक तराजू की एक चीज को आप भारी कर दोगे तो दूसरा हल्का हो जाएगा तराजू बराबर है we cannot historical wrongs cannot be undone but the point is and there are two different and both of you represented two different populations. Rajat's population is where empowerment is necessary. It means where you need a lot of women need to be supported, and there are places where men also need to be supported. And I think it is that's why I felt these conversations because somewhere we are silencing men, and somewhere we are doing exactly what animal farm ek book thi. We are becoming, we are
Oh
doing
well.
exactly what was done, and I don't think that is what is needed. But men don't know how to talk, and men don't know because Rajat, we know how counseling has gone. It's become a very, it's not the whole process of counseling and therapy is so feminine. It is feminine in the sense it requires those speaking and other things. So I think we need to look at things and we need to start conversations and start looking and taking both a balanced perspective. And I want to thank both of you, Rajat, and show. You've made it. It has been such a pleasure, and thank you because sharing thoughts is very, it's very difficult to be so honest and to just be upfront about things. Thank you. Both are very famous authors, and I'm really grateful and thank you for sharing. And
Thank thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
so
yeah,
you.
and
much. Had a great time.
again, again, we say that we exceed the limit. Men can talk.
Yeah. Okay.
And
All
thank
right, good
you so
night.
much. Thank you
Good
so
night.
much. Thank you,
Thank
Rajat.
you. Bye.
And to all the